Get ready for what Wall Street's calling hot commie summer. Axios reports that establishment Democrats are melting down. A, quote, full-on freakout over socialist Zohran the Destroyer, crushing Andrew Cuomo in the New York City's mayor's race. Donors are fearful he could hurt the party's brand nationally. Comrade Z wants to defund the police, legalize prostitution, and he sees this as a model for the nation.
Do you think that is a platform that would work for other candidates running in other parts of the country?
Absolutely. I think ultimately this is a campaign about inequality. And you don't have to live in the most expensive city in the country to have experienced that inequality because it's a national issue. In focusing on working people and their struggles, we also return back to what makes so many of us proud to be Democrats in the first place.
Dana, are the Republicans happy about Zohran the Destroyer?
I think it's mixed. Yes, in a way. I do think that they think, oh, okay, well, we can really go after this guy. And in a way, it's only Trump's campaign who was able to match the kind of TikTok-ness of the campaign tactics that he had. If you think about Cuomo wanting to run against this guy, he was basically running a campaign from the 1970s. Like, it felt so old, and the messaging was old. And then you have Mamdani, who, it's like, even if you were not into the policies, you're kind of taken in by the look and feel and the vibe of the campaign. So I think there's that. But I also think there are plenty of Republicans who think this is actually dangerous. You have people who support him saying, but real socialism has never been tried.
Oh, gosh.
As if, basically, again, you go back to the fact that nobody goes to school, nobody knows their history, et cetera. I also think that the city has been hollowed out of a lot of families, right? It's very difficult and very expensive to raise families in this city. So you have a lot of young single people that are here, and you have a lot of older white liberals that really liked it, and then you had the low-income people who are saying, well, they don't want him. This is going to be a big fight. To me, Eric Adams feels a little low energy, and I don't think he understands the way to try to beat him. Look at, like, we're just showing the video here. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I'm liking this.
The question I would like to ask him is, what does he think happened to the $1 billion that Bill de Blasio gave to his wife to work on homeless issues in this city? Gave her $1 billion. Take it over. Do whatever you need. They lost all the money. Where do you think it went? What do you think went wrong? Government was in charge then. What do you think, sir, went wrong there? Where did that money go? Is it wrong? Is it a bad thing that that money was lost? Who do you think that money came from, et cetera? There's so many questions you could put to him, but if it's a campaign on vibes, he's got the edge.
Hot commie summer. You psyched?
Yeah. So on the one, first of all, I love the idea that somebody like Andrew Cuomo paid a price for his handling of COVID.
Yep.
I think that's fantastic. Unfortunately, this is probably not the right lesson to learn from it. Government-run grocery stores are not. Can you imagine getting your groceries from somebody that it looks like one of the people that mans the stations in the subway and is and cares about your food delivery, your food order as much as that person cares about your safety? It's not gonna be pretty. The other thing that I do love about this is that there are a few places that are bluer political entities than New York City, and this is a confirmation that Democrat policies absolutely fail. Even Democrat voters hate Democrat policies because they have rejected normal Democrat policies in favor of this loony stuff. As for, I'm sure Republicans who live here are not too excited about this, but if you're President Trump and you're a Republican running anywhere else in the country, we're not making this stuff up. There really are people who believe this stuff, who believe in socialism, and there are voters who support it. And that is very, very good for Republicans.
On a scale of 1 to 10, Jessica, how scared are you if he wins?
He's not my first choice.
So 10.
To say the least. No, listen, there are many issues that I have with his platform. I don't think it's feasible to have a $30 minimum wage. If you want to say that we should have more food pantries instead of government-run grocery stores, I think we could talk about that. But, pie in the sky kind of stuff that you often hear from the left. Though people did tell Bill de Blasio that universal pre-K was pie in the sky, and we have it now, and everybody loves it and takes advantage of it. People who even would technically have enough money for private school, because the public schools have gotten better in the city in certain areas, are using it. And then there's the whole conversation about positions that he's taken, like, supporting the BDS movement. His statement that came out on October 8th after the atrocity of October 7th, which also condemned Israel. Those are things that are very difficult for me. But two things are important. One, he wasn't running against your average member of the Democratic establishment. Andrew Cuomo was a pretty uniquely flawed candidate for this. And like Dana said, he ran a lifeless campaign. I watched a lot of the events, know a lot of people who worked in his orbit, and it was pretty joyless. And Mamdani was joyful every single second that he was doing this, even when he was getting grilled about past positions that he's taken. How are you going to get this to work? He looked like he was having a blast. And on the question of where you say, well, socialism doesn't work, there's a real split between what younger people think socialism means and what older people think socialism means. Younger people think it means tax the rich. Older people think it means bread lines. And that's where you're seeing this
Both
real
are
division.
true.
But people who don't know their history are doomed to repeat it.
Like I said, he wasn't my top choice.
So it does look like this guy is about vibes, and the Democrats, all they care about is someone who looks like they're having a good time. Doesn't matter what they're for, as long as they look like they're having fun.
That's the only acceptable explanation for this, because to me, this is a joyfully wrapped, total anti-Semite that is hell-bent on destroying the city even further. I spoke with a prominent New York City businessman earlier today, and he said, you asked her if she was scared. He said, as a Jew, I'm angry, scared, and abandoned. He said, I'm scared my kids will not be able to live in America. He said, this is how it starts, by that one on your screen. And he said, this isn't as much about Mamdani as it is my friends and neighbors abandoning us. So everyone here in this borough that voted for that totally and utterly abandoned the Jewish community here and across the world. And I think it is fantastic to even entertain his policies that are rooted in utter nonsense. So you have America's worst mayor, de Blasio, who came in and said, well, he was successful because he talked about kitchen table issues. Direct quote. He said, rent affordability. People are struggling to make ends meet. He talked about the basics of life, food. First of all, that's not what this person was talking about. Mamdani is talking about handouts. He's talking about gimmicks. He's diving in the Hudson while he wants everyone to have free everything. The reason older people think of socialism as breadlines is because they lived it, because they lived through World War II and through communist adventures that were utterly destructive and fatal. So everyone who has the luxury here of voting for Mamdani, which I find it ironic because despite those who are struggling for basics and struggling to make ends meet, as de Blasio said, those guys voted for Cuomo. It was your typical rich, overeducated, elite snobs that voted for Mamdani. And the fact that they overlook the fact that he hates Jews is the worst thing of all.
Well, you could still DoorDash the bread.
Oh, my God.
You could just have the delivery guy wait in line for you. Problem solved. Up next, Jasmine Crockett thinks it's racist to deport dangerous criminal migrants. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.